So as you can see, today's subject is common mistakes property investors make. So this is an important topic for agents who are making decisions for their buyers for investing in properties. So as we all know, property investing is easy but not simple, because there are many steps in the process to be taken when purchasing a property, and this webinar is designed to show you what you need to do as an agent for your client, when to do that and in what order, so that you do not make a property investing mistake for your client that could cost them thousands of rupees. So we have designed this webinar as a result of seeing many clients who had made poor property investment choices, often because they were sold a property by a real estate sales agent under the guise of it being a good investment. Right? We say कि ले लो, ये तो बहुत अच्छा है, आपको बहुत अच्छा return मिलेगा, but then it doesn't work out so. The buyer, however, the person who bought, however, either did no independent research, or either he had no real understanding of the risk of buying that property. They did not understand their own risk profile, or they did not understand risk of that property or its real opportunity to grow in value over the period of time. Suppose whether this property would secure a good tenant or not, if it would generate a strong income over the period of time, and if they could easily dispose of the property when they wanted to cash out. So see, this particular paragraph taught us that while deciding a property for your buyer or for yourself or for anybody, there are risks. And what type of risks are there? So first of all, you need to understand risk profile of a buyer, that property, what are the chances of growing that property in terms of value, tenant milega ke nahi, that all these things you need to check out. So what we hope with this webinar, what you can gain is a better understanding of what makes a successful and prosperous property investor. So this webinar is actually for an agent to convince an investor how they should select an agent and what are the steps involved in property investment. So I will be from now onward understanding you as a buyer, not an agent. So you will be the focus of this training as a buyer, not an agent, and you in turn will do the same to your buyer when it comes to investing for them. So mistake number one is that it is thinking free advice is free. So what happens, anyone can sign their name to a contract and buy a property, easy. What is not easy is what comes before the purchase. Many steps along the way and due diligence required to ensure you are buying the right type of property for the right reasons and at a right price, while also ensuring that it matches your personal risk profile, goals and circumstances. Alarmingly, it is very alarmingly, there is no legal requirement of people, there is no legal requirement for people who are involved in the property sector to have a minimum qualification to provide property advice. Nowadays anyone can give you property advice. So what happens, there is an abundance of property brokers like my property touts, selling agents, wholesale marketers, so-called experts. There are project marketers, seminar presenters, investor clubs, developers, builders, property institutes, one-stop shop, and some financial planner, accountant, loan broker, all selling property based on the free education, strategy and advice which they provide. See how many people are involved in this. So this free advice inevitably leads the buyer down the path of buying the property they have for sale because it matches the free education, strategy and advice provided. So where a selling agent works is there are two things involved, selling agent and buying agent. So selling agent works for the interest of their vendor, means seller. All advice provided by him is usually free, but it is also biased. Whereas a buyer is represented by a buyer agent who works for their client interest and or an accredited property investment advisor. All advice provided is free for service but always unbiased and impartial. So what happens, suppose let me give an example. If you are a defendant in a court case, would you attend a hearing without a legal representation and then turn to the prosecutor for advice? Would you do that? Probably not. But this is effectively what happens when you seek advice from a selling agent who is representing their vendor, not you. So your only protection as a buyer is to seek impartial and independent advice. So for a RE/MAX agent, for a agent, what he has to convey to the buyer that I am impartial and independent advisor to you and I am not making any biased decision for you. Mistake number 2. Not understanding risk. This person can go to other side, then there will not be problem. So understanding a personal risk profile, his partner's risk profile and the level of risk associated with various property styles and investment strategy is very critical to investment success. So first of all, let us know what is the definition of risk. So what is risk actually? So risk is the extent to which you are willing to expose yourself to loss in exchange of particular level of gain, right? Suppose you are investing 1 lakh rupees in a stock market thinking I am going to get a gain of 2 lakh rupees at the end of this period. So you are going to gain 2 lakh rupees of gain, but you are risking 1 lakh rupees. So it is, you have decided to risk that much money. So when it comes to money, some of us are more or less conservative than others. There can be a various risk profiles ranging from conservative risk profile, cautious risk profile, prudent risk profile, and from assertive to aggressive risk profile. So our appetite or a desire for investment may also vary according to our own unique circumstances. So by understanding your or your client's personal risk profile and appetite, you are more likely to take decision to invest. So for example, someone with a low risk profile and low appetite should not take assertive action when it comes to investing, such as buying a high risk development site. And a person with high risk profile and a high risk appetite, however, is far more likely to be comfortable with that type of investment, but still need to do their due diligence to mitigate any risk in future. So how can you lessen the risk? Risk कैसे कम कर सकते हैं? So it can be lessened through careful research, analysis and sourcing evidence to support an investor's decision to purchase a property of a particular style, type and in a particular location. In case of a risk, one size definitely doesn't fit all. So it is important to learn about your personal risk profile or your client personal risk profile and understanding the different property risk. So if you are going to advise your client whether to buy this property or not, you need to first understand his risk profile and different property risk for him. This will allow you to manage and reduce risk during the establishment and growth phase of his property portfolio. At a minimum, it will enable you to make better informed and appropriate investment decision from that outset. So at best, it will stop you from losing thousands of rupees, which was your hard-earned saving, by preventing from investing an inappropriate property type for your risk profile. So this way you can sleep at night. So this is for your client. So whatever I am speaking here, it is in reference to your client. So if I am telling you can sleep at night, you can tell your client, if we will reduce the risk, you will have a better sleep at night. So by understanding your client's personal risk profile and risk associated with different type of property and investment strategy, you can position yourself in the eyes of your customer to develop prosperous and sustainable property portfolio agent. So mistake number 3, not having a documented plan. See, there is a saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So buying property without a strategy is like trying to build house without set of plans. To create sustainable wealth and building a property portfolio, you need a tailored, documented strategy that guides the way and spells out the financial requirements, cost implements, and time frames that you will need to meet to safely invest in property. So clarity around goals should be there, and clarity around goals will allow one to calculate how much debt-free property needed to be on. It will provide the lifestyle the person seeks. So one need to know his current cost of living and time frame to determine the size of the asset base required to generate this level of passive income. Ideally, one will review this and portfolio annually to see if they are on target. One can modify that strategy as and when required, but a strategy is required. If one has a short time frame, he could ignore his risk profile and pursue a strategy that is higher risk for higher return to achieve that goal. But then again, you will not be able to sleep at night. So one could readjust his time frame to achieve goals sustainably and safely, especially the income and finance means are limited. So it is always better to overestimate the income one will need and underestimate the return on the asset pool to allow a margin of safety. So nowadays we see there is a longevity is increase. So people generally lives more than 70 years of age. So we all seem to be living much longer nowadays. So the asset will need to generate an income for up to 30-40 years. Especially if one want to retire younger than the standard 70 years of age. So one has to keep in mind his entry, hold and exit strategy as a part of his overall plan. This need to be assessed before one invests so that he buys the right property type. So documentation and its plan, documented plan is very much essential. By starting with an end goal in mind and working backwards, one can set a realistic financial target to work towards enabling him to know how much money he will end up with at retirement. Next. Mistake number 4 is not engaging a team of experts. We all love property, yet many people continue to invest in property without seeking expert advice. Would you ever, that I have just give an example, would you ever consider defending yourself in a court of law without a lawyer? Of course not. It is the same with property. It is in your best interest to hire an expert to help you to make well-informed decision. So see, this should be your selling point while you are talking to an investor or a buyer. So in fact, it could end up saving that person thousands of rupees. So think of property investment as a property business. Your experts all form part of the success of that business. Independently, they help you to maximize the investment opportunity, minimize tax or minimize risk, while collectively they combine to increase your success multifold. Suppose we were building a home. Expert advice referred to on the left is equal in importance to concrete, frame, bricks, mortar that keep the property together. These form the structure and the foundation of the building. There could be significant financial consequences if you find out the concrete is too thin and the mortar too weak after the house has been built. So what will happen after the house is built and you come to know that the mortar was too weak and concrete was too thin? Same applies when engaging experts to help you in the property investing process. So after one has purchased the property, it is too late for them to get an expert for the help. So this is to be conveyed by you to your investor whenever they are seeking help of an agent, which kind of agent they should take into account. We have seen 3 mistakes earlier, whether any other person have given them that guidance or not. So different experts need to be engaged at different stages, and some of them need to be engaged simultaneously. So an agent's job is to provide all these things simultaneously to an investor. Like all industries, you need to be able to source the best and most professional expert that specialize in working with property investors who are building portfolio over time, and that is your specialty. That job you have to do. And why? Because they need to step into the future with you and consider all of the implication, how big you want to build your portfolio, what type of properties you will buy, which strategy you will use, and who will benefit financially and when, so that they can provide the correct advice, planning and structure in advance to the investor. So why in advance? Because after the purchase it's too late. So make it your selling point. Whenever you are sending your profile to any investor, give them this, why you need us in advance, because once you have done purchase, it is too late. Another mistake a buyer does is not doing adequate research. That you need to understand and see how you can prevent your buyer. So tell them that after engaging team of experts, the next step is to decide what to buy, where to buy, and to go about researching and assessing opportunities. Start with assessing a number of different type of property, the what, and then get into the why. The where is up to you to determine based on the drivers of growth. So the 3 main residential investment options are to buy established property, buy land, and build or buy property off the plan. It is more important to understand the risks associated with these types of property than the benefits. Because while most selling agents are more likely most sellings are more than ready to share their positives, they generally will not voluntarily disclose the risk. So do this when you are talking to an investor. Understanding the drivers of growth and whether they are temporary and unsustainable or permanent and sustainable will enable you to more selective as to the areas in which you buy for your client. Macro and microeconomic drivers influence growth. See, macroeconomics is the study of the current Indian economic market condition and where they sit in relation to the rest of the world, including population of growth, land availability, housing starts, mineral exploration, tourism, infrastructure investment, while microeconomics relate to events in regional areas and are often used for when hot spotting areas for sustainable future capital. Suppose Dholera, Sanand area where lot of industries are coming up, and if you are able to see it, investment in this area as of now will fetch multiple gain in future for my client, then you should do that. So broadly this encompasses population growth and amenities such as the provision of schools, hospitals. Decreases in the property market can be as a result of oversupply and primary industry closing down. So consider the factor driving rental return. If you purchase property in area where there is high demand but limited supply, especially for a particular demographic such as students sharing, professionals or families, or if it is in a location that is in high demand but limited supply, then your opportunity for regular rental increases and long-term tenancy improve. Another mistake is not understanding the rules. See, real estate is a game, so learn the rules or engage someone who does it as their daily profession and completely understand them. Convey this to your buyers. Note, due to different legislation, the rules of the game differ from state to state. So do not make the mistake of thinking that each state operates the same way. So there are rules that selling agents need to abide by. There are rules buyers and buyer agents need to abide by. And there is an umpire in every state, otherwise known as a consumer affairs. So what are these rules? So property advertising must not be misleading or deceptive. It is illegal for a seller or agent to misrepresent a property in a way when advertising or marketing that property, whether verbally or in writing or photographs. It is illegal for an agent to advertise or advise you a price that is less than the seller's reserve price or asking price or the agent's current estimate of the liking selling price. See, so knowledge is power, so inform yourself of the rules. These are some examples. When agents know they are dealing with savvy and informed buyers, they are less likely to try and get away with illegal practices. So the success or failure of establishing your client's portfolio can often come down to your agent's ability or inability to successfully negotiate a price and condition in your client's favor. Remember, you are up against professional negotiators. So do not take this lightly or underestimate the selling agent. Always make sure you have had the contract reviewed before you place an offer on the property, and always include a clause for building and pest inspection or whatever is required in that area, or attend to this before the sale happens. Last not but the least is not reviewing customers' portfolio. Like any investment, one need to keep check on property performance over time. Many investors have no awareness as to how and at what rate their property has performed, or what the potential is for the future capital and or rental income growth. You can provide this service to your client. The benefit of reviewing portfolio is to ensure that property is still performing to the expectation. It is also to ensure that you do not get caught out if the market turns for reasons that may be as a result of changing or irreversible local market condition. So you need to be aware of local market condition or anything which happens which changes the price. Ideally, you should revisit the reasons why you make your client bought the property, and you should do that every 12 months to monitor the local situation. If the area is in the media or news, a lot of there is unusual activity or talk about the property market there, then do it earlier. But stay on top of it or it could cost you dearly. It is important when buying investment property to never fall in love with your property. Remember, this is a property business you are running, so you need to keep your emotions out of it. This is for investors who are buying property for investment purpose. So falling in love with property can make it harder for you to cut your losses and sell in the event that the property is no longer performing or unlikely to continue to perform over the longer term. Means it won't enable you to achieve your goals. So staying frozen in fear and distrust also doesn't help. Understandably, if you have been burnt by investing poorly, you are likely to want to stick your head in the sand. So often informed and evidence-based action is required to be able to move past the error. You can consider it as a valuable lesson too and take steps to turn the situation into positive. The cost of existing and re-entering the property market is substantial. So this need to be taken into consideration before taking action to sell. So today what we discuss, the property investment is easy but not simple, and there are many steps in the process to be taken when purchasing a property. And this webinar was designed to show, as an investor, what you would need to do, when and in what order. You can convert it for your client. You can present your client also. You see how you can invest in property and what are the mistakes you can make. So if we'll revisit the mistakes, so mistake 1 was thinking free advice is free. Anyone can give free advice, but your only protection is to seek impartial and independent advice. Mistake 2 was not understanding risk. One has to know his risk profile, his partner's risk profile. Everything is to be taken care. No one has. Mistake 3 was not having a documented plan. So as I said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And buying property without a strategy is like trying to build a house without a set of plans. Mistake 4 was not engaging a team of experts. We all love property, yet many people continue to invest in property without seeking expert advice. So you cannot consider defending yourself in a court of law without a lawyer. So it is same with property. It is in your best interest to hire an expert to help you to make well-informed decision. This you have to convey to your client. Mistake number 5, not doing adequate research. So for any property buying decision, you need to have lot of research done, and you have to understand how to engage team of expert, where to buy, what to buy, and where is up to you to determine based on the drivers of growth of that area. And mistake 6, not understanding the rules. So you have to understanding the rules, legal, illegal, etc. And last we see not reviewing the portfolio. So these were 7 mistakes generally a property buyer makes. So you need to make them aware. Your investor need to be conveyed. Okay, sir, these are all the mistakes a buyer makes. So you should be specializing in providing property portfolio review for your client, because property do not all perform at the same rate. So it is important to assess their performance to see if your client are on track to achieve their goals. To only take into account the cost and tax benefit when lodging their tax return is not enough. It is essential to consider the ongoing potential for annual growth and rental income growth. it is always not necessary to sell a poor performing property. See, if your research shows justifiable potential or opportunity for growth in the future, then you can advise them to keep the property. So the decision to keep or sell a property can only be determined by doing a research and considering their options. So be wary of anyone who automatically suggests selling the property without completing a thorough analysis of each property first. They may have another agenda. So be cautious and remember to always seek impartial and unbiased advice that a real estate agent gives, that you are. So convey this to your client. Happy investing and happy earning. Thank you very much. If you have any question, you can ask. We started a little late today, so sorry for that. I hope this helps. Thank you.